Great, thank you. So you made it, last speaker. And guess what? I'm the one that brought the oranges. So please make sure, yay, they're locally grown organic oranges. And there's a reason for them, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what I'm going to focus on today, really, and make sure I leave enough time to show the video at the end, is to talk about supply chains and the value that supply chain management tools can have in impacting climate justice. And I'm going to share a couple of case studies and examples, and I'm going to end with a really neat project that I think Keith alluded to a minute ago, where we had several members of the community get involved and take a look at the value of sourcing locally grown organic produce for the school system here in San Diego as part of a farm to school program. But anyhow, I just realized I wasn't paying attention. I should be moving my things. So as Keith mentioned, I'm with Source Intelligence. We actually started out as a carbon footprinting company. And we're relatively new. We're only about 4 years old or so. And then all of a sudden realized, there aren't a whole heck of a lot of reasons for people to be estimating carbon footprints of their facilities or of the products that they're manufacturing. Bill actually had some legislation, a list of legislation up on one of his slides. But believe it or not, that's not enough. It's not enough to drive the need for companies to actually invest in that type of thing. But what happened as we started out in that business is we became very, very good at collecting data from within supply chains. And I should say the entire value chain. So it's both upstream supply chains as well as downstream vendor chains. And so what we're doing these days is we are helping our customers understand and gain some transparency into those supply chains. So these supply chains are localized, right? We have supply chains that can be significantly global in nature, but that global characterization can also have very local impacts on the communities based on the entities that are present in those communities. And when you look at a supply chain, I don't know if anybody's actually looked at a supply chain map, but they can get pretty darn complicated and complex very quickly. When you start looking at where things are originally sourced, whether they're mined or grown, how they get converted into precursor products, then manufactured, then distribution. There's distribution in every single stage of a supply chain until it gets to whether it's the final point of manufacture and then again distributed again to the final consumer. So supply chains can get very, very large, very, very quickly and very complicated. And for those of you, and one of the things that we find, and this is where it gets pretty cool in terms of the work that we're doing, is that we're finding that our customers have pretty good visibility to those initial, what we call tier one suppliers, whether it's the, facility that is manufacturing, could be a contract manufacturer that's making that product for them. But where they lack is visibility in terms of the other entities that are farther up that supply chain. Where is the material coming from? And there's a new law, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Dodd-Frank Act. Okay, the last page and a half of that statute is called refers to what we term conflict minerals. So any publicly traded business in the United States is now required to ascertain whether the conflict minerals contained in their cell phones or iPads or jewelry, conflict minerals being tungsten, tin, tantalum, and gold, whether those materials are sourced from the Democratic Republic of Congo or those adjoining areas. And so when our customers are saying, well, I don't source gold from the DRC. I'm not sourcing tungsten from a mine that's funding armed militias that are committing atrocious crimes against humanity. Well, guess what? They are, and they had no idea. So what we're doing is we're offering, and what I'm finding is that there's tremendous value to offering this sort of transparency into supply chains because it's giving companies this awareness, this knowledge that they are having these types of impacts. And it's not just environmental impacts, but it's social impacts as well in the areas and communities within which they're working. And so what I wanted to share with you today was just a handful of examples, and maybe we can get into a little bit more of a discussion during the Q&A, but just a handful of examples of where some very, sometimes kind of simple and straightforward basic supply chain management solutions can actually help improve and address this issue of climate justice. And I'm going to look at four specific examples for you. One is an example where we found some local opportunities within a globalized framework. Talk a little bit about responsible sourcing. We've talked about transparency transportation all day today, efficiencies in transportation, and then this issue of creating some regional food hubs, and that's where I'm going to share this little video with you. So in terms of finding local opportunities within a globalized framework, I'm going to give you the case of the plain white tee, the plain white t-shirt. We went out and estimated the carbon footprint of a t-shirt, a white cotton t-shirt for a customer, large retailer based here in the US, and came up with some really interesting information. It turns out the t-shirts are actually manufactured in Vietnam. The cotton is sourced from India. Some of the other, like the tags and whatnot were being sourced from a handful of other countries. And then we took a look at packaging. And packaging is actually a huge area where there's a tremendous amount of really neat innovation taking place right now. But we took a look at just the cardboard boxes that those t-shirts were packaged in to be shipped from Vietnam to LA. Guess where those cardboard boxes came from? Those cardboard boxes, and the only way we found out was we started looking at the supply chain. We started going up that supply chain and asking, where do you get your raw materials from? Where do you get your raw materials from? How are they sourced? How are they transported? It turns out, and this isn't even the primary consumer product packaging. This is just the cardboard boxes that the t-shirts are lumped into. They get closed up, put on the ship, and then transported. Well, the cardboard boxes were being manufactured in LA, shipped to Vietnam. T-shirts were packaged into those cardboard boxes, and then they were shipped back to LA. Okay? So this was one of those examples, and I love this, because it's every now and then I have a customer, they have an aha moment, and there was sort of this dead silence, and I knew. It's going click, 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 click. They're having this sort of aha moment. Why are we doing that? They just didn't have the visibility. That transparency wasn't available. So we gave them an opportunity to find a local source of those boxes, actually right in Vietnam. It was an opportunity to further contribute to the community within which that was already manufacturing those t-shirts for them, as opposed to, and then guess what else they did? They just minimized their carbon footprint associated with that product as well. So again, kind of a simple, not real complicated rocket science here, but they just needed that knowledge. They needed the awareness. Another example is responsible sourcing, sometimes referred to as ethical sourcing. This is kind of a term that's sort of thrown around quite a bit these days. You'll take a look at some companies' websites, and there's some really neat policy statements with regard to ethical sourcing and responsible sourcing. But the key, however, is finding those companies, and what we really need are those organizations with these large, globally recognized brand names to take a stand and to make a commitment and to not only establish a policy, but actually walk the talk of that policy. So when you find organizations such as Walmart, and I'm just throwing these up, they're not, don't have any particular affiliation with any of these organizations, but what you're looking for is a name, is a globally recognized brand or name that people can relate to, that can make a stand and take a stand with regards to these types of issues. And that helps promote change, and that helps promote commitment. So that's responsible sourcing. The other thing is improving transportation efficiencies, and I thought this was kind of a neat case study because it's an example. We've talked about collaboration and partnering. So here's a collaborative example of where a customer and their logistics partner got together and said, you know what, we got to come up with a more efficient way to distribute our products and to move parts from one place to another. And they did. And the nice thing about it was that it not only resulted in cost savings, which is critical, right? The only way you're going to sell this in the first place is if you can build a business case for it. But it also reduced the carbon footprint, okay, associated with those particular operations. So that's sort of the silver lining. The other thing is this example of these sort of local food hubs. and sourcing locally and taking advantage of local organic farming. We entered into a, and I won't tell you too much about it because the video will sort of go through it in more detail, but we had a really neat opportunity to, we being my company, the UCSD, Urban Studies and Planning, Global ARC, and the San Diego Unified School District. We actually utilized undergraduates from UCSD, which was great. And Keith mentioned how they have to prepare and write these theses. And so we found this particular project with a goal of assessing the carbon footprint of organic oranges that are part of a local farm-to-school program here in San Diego, California. And so what the students did was they took a look at the carbon footprint of those oranges and compared them to non-locally sourced oranges to ascertain sort of what the difference was and what the impact was. And so what I'm going to do now is share this quick video. It's not very fancy schmancy. It's just a very basic video, but it's kind of a neat, it'll sort of tell the story of the project, I think, for you. So let's see if this works. It worked.
This Source 44 Quick Flick provides a high-level overview of the Farm-to-School Research Practicum, an educational collaborative project with the University of California, San Diego, the Global Action Research Center, the San Diego Unified School District Farm-to-School Program, and a San Diego County organic farm and produce distributor. Climate change is a challenge that is affecting people and the environment on a global scale. There is indisputable evidence that human activities such as electricity production and transportation are adding to the concentrations of greenhouse gases that are already naturally present in the atmosphere. Understanding the activities that cause greenhouse gas emissions and measuring carbon footprints in all business sectors, such as the agricultural sector, will help us reduce carbon emissions and eventually mitigate climate change. The questions this project sought to answer was, what is the carbon footprint of a locally grown organic orange? And how does that footprint compare to a non-organic orange grown in Florida? These were the key questions undergraduate students at the UCSD Urban Studies and Planning program asked during their senior sequence research practicum. A select group of students partnered with Source 44, a sustainability data management company in Solana Beach, California, with the goal to bring science into the service of society. The San Diego Unified School District's Farm-to-School program provided valuable feedback and information regarding the district's effort to connect K-12 schools and local farms with the objective of serving healthy meals in school cafeterias, improving student nutrition, providing agriculture, health, and nutrition education opportunities, and supporting local and regional farmers. The UCSD students visited a family-owned organic farm located in Valley Center, California. The farm grows, packs, and distributes certified organic avocados, citrus, and berries nationwide. This local farmer spent valuable time with the students describing how their organic farming practices and environmentally conscious operations yield the highest quality of produce. Students learned about organic farming techniques that have minimal impacts on the environment. They observed the use of solar panels that generate electricity, the complete avoidance of pesticides, use of organic mulch, composting, recycling, and the use of biodiesel for farm vehicles. Students collected data regarding fuel consumption and electricity use at the farm, the packaging of oranges, and the transportation routes from the farm to a distribution center and eventually to San Diego Unified School District schools. These data were entered into Source 44's proprietary data management platform, Source Intelligence. The data were analyzed, and then the carbon footprint data visually displayed. The carbon footprint for one box of locally grown organic oranges was estimated at 3.09 kilograms. Most of the carbon emissions associated with the organic oranges were related to the processing of materials for the cardboard cartons in which the oranges are shipped. The carbon footprint breakdown was also visually displayed as a tree map, so the largest contributing factors to the organic orange's footprint could be better understood. A tracer map was created in Source Intelligence, to trace where carbon emissions occur throughout the life of an organic orange. This includes carbon emitted from the production of organic chicken manure used as fertilizer to the transportation of the oranges to the San Diego schools for consumption. Students learned about the efforts on behalf of the Valley Center Farm, the school district, and the cold storage warehouse to distribute the local oranges in such a way as to make transportation as efficient as possible. This in turn reduces the carbon footprint of the oranges. The carbon footprint for one box of Florida-grown oranges was estimated at 11.54 kilograms, much larger than the 3.09 kilograms associated with the locally grown organic oranges. In this case, the majority of carbon emissions were associated with the trucking of oranges from Florida to San Diego. This tree map, generated in Source Intelligence, further demonstrates this fact. The students learned that the carbon footprint associated with the locally grown organic oranges was significantly lower than the carbon footprint for the Florida-grown oranges. The benefits of farm-to-school programs were clear to the students. Sourcing local, organically grown produce not only provides the children with healthy alternatives for meals at school, but it also supports regional sustainability efforts by minimizing carbon emissions associated with orange growing, harvesting, and distribution by non-local farms. For more information about Source 44 or any of the companies and organizations featured, please visit their websites. This has been a Source 44 Quick Flick.
So anyhow, just kind of a neat example of the a project, a truly collaborative project where you can take a global issue and find an opportunity to address it at a local level. So I think with that, and please make sure you take some oranges today, I'll turn it back over to Keith.